Okay, hi guys. Good afternoon. I'm now ready to do day 2 of the Fredericton Arts Alliance virtual residency. Today I'm going to be talking about how I make armatures. So it's like the skeleton that's inside of my pieces. But I thought first maybe you would like to see the finished result from yesterday's post and what we were working on. So I'll flip the camera around here. So this is my finished piece. So I'm going to be taking some pictures of this and posting it onto the Facebook page. I'm pretty happy when how it turned out. I'm thinking this little guy here is going to be my logo. So now I'm going to talk to you about some of the materials that I use when I'm making armatures. If I can set you up here. There we go. So it used to be the only thing I would use is this here. This is just wire from the dollar store. It's pretty good. It's very flexible. And I would use a pair of wire cutters or even some scissors to work on it and to make my skeletons. But I actually found out something really interesting for me, and that's that pipe cleaners. Pipe cleaners work incredibly well. They're just as flexible, right? But they actually have this soft coating. So when I'm felting into my pieces with this, I know that the fibers get a hold on really well, and I'm not going to break my needles as often because I'm probably going to hit the fluff before I hit the wire. So we're going to use these today to make some of our creatures. So the one I'm going to be doing today is a goat, a mountain goat. So we'll be using this to start that process. All right, so I'm going to set the camera up so you can kind of see what I'm doing, I hope. Let's see if we can get this working here. Whoa, maybe not. Why don't we... Aha, I think I almost have it. There, okay. So there's that, and I'm just going to have this so I can see what I'm doing on here as well. There we go. Hopefully that's not too blurry. Doesn't look like it. Okay, so the first thing I kind of do is figure out the animal I'm making. And since I know I'm making a goat, you know, four-legged creature, I usually look up a bunch of reference to kind of see what the body type looks like and start building from there. So I'm just going to use kind of the stuff to build out my skeleton. I need to figure out how big I want my goat. Like, do I want it really tiny, that's the whole thing, or do I want a bigger piece? Generally, I like working with bigger pieces. I like having the freedom to put in lots and lots of detail. So what I'm thinking I will do is build kind of a rib cage here, about the size I'd like to have it. So maybe, yeah, maybe like that for a rib cage, about that wide. And I just kind of build in what I think I'm going to do. I think what I should do and what I usually do is I look up some reference to see what the creature looks like. So I am going to use my iPad here. See if I can get it up. So I'm going to use this, and I am going to look up a mountain goat. Okay, so let's look at some images. These do not look like the ones I saw in the video, so maybe I should actually mountain goats in Wales. Yeah, so these are the guys that I saw. There's actually a video. Let's see if this is actually the video that I saw. Yeah, so it's talking about here. Yeah, so let's turn the sound off on that. So this is some video of the mountain goats running around in Wales. This is through the Telegraph Journal, I believe, posted this video. So it's really neat that they're just kind of exploring. So those are the ones I'm going to want to do some images of, these guys here. Yeah, so now I have an idea of kind of what they look like, what their body shape is. So I'm going to use this, maybe find a side angle like so. And I'm going to use this reference to create my armature here. So they kind of have like a odd shape to them where they're a little bit compact, I guess. So there's that. I can use that as the body inside. They have a little bit of a shorter neck and head, so I'm just going to make that into a head, then come back here with it and twist, twist, twist. So now I have a neck. And the thing with the under stuff, it really doesn't need to look that much like the creature. It's just kind of a base to work on. I put so much wool over top, you really, really don't see much of a resemblance to the armature I made originally. Like a little bit, but it really gets to the point where I've sculpted on top so much that if the wire armature had any sort of faults at all, you won't notice. All right, so maybe I'll twist this. So, okay. The only thing with the pipe cleaners is they're a little bit thinner than the wire I use for my other creatures. And it's a bit fiddly, like it moves around a lot, it bends quite a bit. So if I wanted to do something that was incredibly rigid, this would not be what I would be using. It just would not, it wouldn't hold up well. And I know I'm going to be wanting to do some legs on these goats, and I want it to actually stand. So what I'm going to do is use the wire that I have and make some legs out of this and give it some strength. So let's see, let's decide about how tall do we want our goat to be. They kind of have a little bit longer, skinnier legs, so maybe like this. And what I do is I actually wrap the wire around where I can. Kind of twist it into place. And I'll actually wrap around this way a couple of times, just that way it doesn't like fall out of my creature or anything else. Like I know it's going to stay. And because I know, like, I put quite a bit of bulk on the character as I'm working, so his legs look a little long, but that's because there's going to be so much wool on here that we're going to lose quite a bit of the legs. So I made them a little bit longer than what would look right for the skeleton if you just had the skeleton and not the actual finished goat. So next I'm going to make the other leg, kind of see about how long they are. The other thing is I can just, like, let's say I make this super long and it's like 3 times as long as the other legs. I can just snip them once I get them into place. So what I'm going to do is kind of try to wrap it around. Oh, that one's a bit shorter than I want. Okay, there we go. And then same thing for the other side. Let's see. Oh, that's shorter than I would like. So again, I just kind of push and pull into place until I have what I want. So one leg is a little bit longer than the other. So what I do is I just snip. Same thing here. The front legs are a little bit longer than the back legs. So I just kind of snip off how much I think I could lose. There. So I kind of have a thing that will stand up. The thing with this, though, goats have kind of these weird shape to their legs where, like, weird compared to us, where our legs don't kind of bend that way. They have the point that is where what would be our thigh is, and then their knee and ankle. So it kind of goes forward and then bends back. So I'm going to try and replicate that here with the wire a little bit. Just for now, that's not, like, it's not correct at all. And I wouldn't say I'm very good with anatomy. I've never been fantastic with anatomy. And kind of my hope is that eventually I can take some anatomy classes so I can really get better at building these creatures, because I will know how to sculpt them better, because I will know how they're built and how they fit together. So now I'm going to take the pipe cleaner. I'm actually going to wrap it around the bigger, thicker wires just to give some buffer. And this will give it some extra stability as well. And I'm going to put a little bit extra around the bottom because I want the hooves to be able to stand. And I can bend all this stuff around and out of my way and not have to worry about it until I really get it into place. Later when I'm putting the actual wool on. So Okay. Here we go. So I'll do the same thing with the other leg where I kind of wrap it around. I think probably part of the reason I chose to do the goats is not only is the story super cute, but I'm really in love with the way they look. Their horns are super cute, and it's kind of like they have the goatee, and you know, they look like the little Billy Goat Scruff from the old nursery rhymes and such. So I just kind of think they're really cute. So I wanted to do something with them, and that's usually what I do. I'll either make a creature that I really like and are attracted to, or if someone has a request, I'll make what they would like to have. So that's kind of how I pick what I'm going to be working on. You know, I want to be working on something that I'm not going to get bored with, something that inspires me, and something I'm going to want to have. So a lot of these end up living in my room. So if I don't want to kind of look at them, then I'm probably not going to make them to have in my space. And all this actually started for me when I like having fan art, really. Like, my favorite thing to do is fan art. So I've seen a ton of creatures and things in fantasy and fantasy movies, and I always want toys or action figures with them, things to put in my collection. But they're somewhat hard to find. A lot of places don't actually make the kind of things I'm looking for. So I decided that instead of trying to find them somewhere, I could just make them myself. So that's really what I started doing. And one of those was I wanted a full-sized owl from Harry Potter to go with a cosplay. I go to Anna Maritime every year, and one year I was dressing up as a witch from Hogwarts, and I wanted my own owl to have with me. And I couldn't really find a full-size one like I wanted, so I just made one. And, you know, it worked out pretty good for me. So the other thing I'm going to need is he's going to have horns. Like, the ears I could have coming off just out of the felt, but I'm going to want to have some more strength to the horns. So I'm actually just going to take, whoa! Well, I just lost the phone here. Ooh. Hold on. Let me try to get this set back up again. Let's see if we can figure this out any better, a way to set you up so you can kind of have my point of view while working. There we go. Just a little bit. Yeah, so that'll work a little bit, I guess. Yeah, so I'm going to want to have some horns, and I'm going to want it to have a little bit of strength. So what I will do is kind of, here we go. I don't know if you guys have ever worked with pipe cleaners as a kid, making like little creatures or whatever. It's actually a very handy skill to have, especially for things like this. Okay, so that's one. Let's see, probably want it to be about the same length, so I'll just measure next to it. So it'll be about the same length. And I'm just going to snip off all this extra because it makes it hard for me to twist, and I'll get the rest of the extra after I've twisted this together a bit. There we go. So that's the basic beginning shape. This is the structure I have right now. Kind of, he looks a little terrible right now, but as we go, it'll look a lot better. All right. So kind of the next step is I have what is called core wool, or just like, it's a more coarse wool. It's not dyed. It's not anything very expensive. I'm not very attached to it. So what I can do is take the core wool and start building shapes onto my sheep here, just kind of by wrapping it around as much as I can. And this is a point where I'm not really too concerned about the shapes. I'm just trying to get it to stick onto the skeleton. So I'm actually going to move my reference out of the way for right now. And I'll come back to that later and just start tacking this wool on so that I have an underneath to build off of. This would be like if I was making a teddy bear. This is the stuffing inside the teddy bear. And I just poke in. And something you need to know when you're needle felting and you're poking in, don't go in at an angle. And make sure you can see your fingers, or else you're going to poke yourself or go down from where your fingers in. But you want to be poking straight down and coming straight out, because if not, you'll start to bend your needle here. I'm pretty sure somewhere here I have a really bent needle because I tend to have a bad habit. I'll keep working until I bend this and it'll eventually break. Which is not good. It's not terrible to have needles broken off in your pieces, but you're going to go through a lot of needles that way, and you don't want to. Eventually you may run out, and then you can't work on your project anymore, which is always a drag. So rather than like moving the needle around, what I do is I actually move the piece around so I can see what I'm doing and have it in the direction that I want it in. And as you can see, the fluff is sticking to the pipe cleaners. So I'm going to do that for the whole body and flesh him out. I'm only going to be streaming for about an hour on Facebook today. What I plan on doing, I'm also streaming live on YouTube. And what I will do is I'm going to do an hour here on Facebook and then move over to YouTube and do some work over there, and then just post some images, updates as we go on how it's looking and how it's working. So I'm just like lightly tacking this on. It's still fluffy, it's not rigid. You don't want to continue poking until it's too hard right now, because this is just one of the first steps. If you make it too hard, then you won't be able to add things on top, which is what you're going to want to do, is add things onto the top of it. So just kind of have it so it's still loose and fluffy. Same thing, I can actually poke some of this inside the hole that I have here, which would be great for making it possible for me to wrap this and have it stick really well. I know yesterday, after the stream was over, my little sister commented that at some point I should do a bumblebee, which I would love to do. I actually have some lace and other things that I think would be really cool to make wings out of. So I'd love to do some bugs, but I think that'll be after the residency, because I haven't quite found any stories about bees while looking through all this COVID stuff. Because again, this residency, this project is creating creatures that I've seen or read or heard about in the news as a lighthearted, happy story of the wildlife during our quarantine. Of course, here in New Brunswick right now, we're actually doing really well, where most of us are able to kind of be back out in the world and are enjoying a lot more of the way life is than in other parts of the world. We're very fortunate. So I haven't heard anything about bees yet. It'd be fantastic if any of you guys know about any stories and bees and COVID, send them my way, because I would love to make a bee. But I think tomorrow maybe we'll vote. If you guys want to vote, let me know what you think is the better choice. I could work on the flamingos from the zoo story tomorrow, or there was a really cool story about a puma. I can't remember if it was in Dubai or if it was in India somewhere. I'd have to look the story back up, but there was a puma that just decided to hang out in the streets, and it was just interesting to see it walking around. It jumped over someone's fence, so that would be a creature I'd love to do. So I think what I'll do is, after this is over, I'll put a poll up on my Fantasy Felt Facebook page and ask people to vote for what the next animal will be, and I will make that tomorrow. And I'll continue working on this for the rest of the day and show you what I've got done tomorrow. Oh, and again, if you can think of any really cool stories and you like know of cute things happening with the animals in the news, comment it on the video and let me know, and then I can go look it up and see if add that to the list to vote on and perhaps create something there. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm like pulling the legs kind of wider apart because he has his chest cavity. He's not just flat. So I'm going to want to round this out before starting the leg muscles. So that way he doesn't look like, he has little spindly legs way in there like that. That would not look right. So I want them kind of widened out. And at this point, I'm not too concerned about detail or like the shape too much. I'm still just kind of adding things on to give me a base to work with. Because with this core wool here, because I'm just lightly tacking it on, I can pull it, I can push it, I can move it, I can use my fingers to shape it in any way I want. So when I get ready to actually shape the muscles and the legs and things like that, I'll be able to do that. Honestly, if I wasn't filming, usually what I would do is have my foam block and I would work on this way. I don't know if you guys can see that as well as when I'm just holding the creature, but I'm a lot less likely to poke my fingers. I've already poked myself a couple times here. So I like working like this so I don't have to worry about injuring myself. Okay, so now we're going to look at wrapping the wool around the legs. That's usually easier if you have kind of like longer strips that you can wrap around, but this stuff is, I had carded it, so it's pretty short. So I'm just going to try and find pieces that I can kind of wind around the best I can. And I tend to wind the legs pretty tight to try to get it to stay. And also because these, goats have pretty spindly little legs for the amount of running up and down mountains they do. Maybe I'll do 3 and have like the billy goat scruff. I tend to, again, that would work really well with my fantasy sort of ideas as well, but I tend to like to relate my stories back to, or my art back to stories. I adore stories, and it's kind of what keeps me going. I always want to be thinking or reading or watching a story, whatever it is. It keeps my mind kind of active and going, so I'm never bored. And it tends to bleed through into my art a lot. Whatever I'm focusing on or thinking about at the moment is definitely what I'm felting at the same time. So, as you saw yesterday, I have a lot of Harry Potter creatures around right now, and it's because I had just been to the parks. I just finished reading the books again. But this week it's news stories that's keeping me going, and I'm kind of not sure where I'll be going next. The dragon I was showing yesterday was actually from, I was reading the book Aragon, which is about dragons. And the wolf, I was reading Wolf Pack series. So generally, whatever I'm reading or thinking about or watching a TV series on or movies, that's what I want to be creating. And I'm not sure if it's because I want to visually interpret what it is I'm imagining, or if I'm just so excited about the story that I'm engaged in that I have to become a part of it by making my own artwork as well to go with it. But it tends to be my favorite sort of way to process things. And I know people really get involved with these characters as well. So usually if I'm making pieces based on books, movies, the news, whatever it is, there's someone else out there that's also interested. So I kind of have an outlet of a place to send my work, because eventually I'll make so many that I just don't have room for them. So I like when I can give them away or trade them to other artists or sell them, whatever it is, so that they don't just have to live here in my room with me. They get another life out in the world and get to start a story of their own. You can hear every once in a while I'm hitting the wire, but because they're wrapped like they are, I'm not damaging my needle. And I can tell when to kind of stop. I find the legs are one of the harder things to do, because I need to get this fiber on here without bending my needle on the wire inside and still have them knot together properly. So sometimes a little bit of a challenge, but just time consuming. It's once you get that done, it looks great, and you can be really happy with it. So as long as you're willing to put in the time and you're okay with being careful with what you're doing, then it'll eventually work out. I don't know if you guys can see, but when I wrap, there's kind of these lines here. And what I'm trying to do is use my needle to go through them to have the fiber from up here go through and catch down here. So it kind of hides those lines. If I keep working at it, they'll disappear. And then I can, once I have it like attached really well, I then go down like this, and it actually puts all the pieces I drug outside and made really fluffy looking and kind of hides it back inside and makes those knots I was talking about. So I have to be careful with the foot because that wire is sticking out and I don't want that sharp point to stick out and be the bottom of the foot. So I'm going to try and pad down here as much as I can to create those hooves. But also that way there's not like a sharp point where a child or myself could hurt myself, because you know I'm a little clumsy and I do end up poking myself often, whether it's with these needles or the wire I'm working with. So it's better if the finished creature doesn't also have pointy bits. So I'm just carefully kind of pressing down here so that way I'm not hitting my fingers and I'm kind of creating like a little nub here. So we're getting there. I don't know if you can see, but he's starting to look like something, not just a monstrosity of pipe cleaners. Still not quite a goat yet, but we're getting closer. Okay, we're just about coming up on 3 o'clock. Since I was going to do this part here for about an hour, what I'm going to do is once we hit 3, I will stop for a coffee break, and I'm going to go film some other things to show you just some short clips of some of the materials I have, maybe show off some of my resources, things like that. And then I will be continuing working on this goat later on this afternoon or this evening on YouTube, and I will post the link for that on my Belted Fantasy Facebook page, so you can see it there. So make sure you keep watching this afternoon for more content coming, and we'll talk about a little bit more about what we're going to be doing tomorrow. I will post the poll to see which animals you guys think you'd like to see me create after the goat. And if you have any questions or anything about what I'm doing, remember to comment on the video. And I will be doing things like this all week, so remember to come back. It's every day at 2 o'clock. I will be doing my live stream, and then I'm going to be sharing lots of other things through my Fantasy Felt Facebook page, which I will link in the comments. Okay, so it's 3 o'clock. I'm very nearly done putting some, very nearly done putting the core onto this guy. Yeah, so I will be back later this afternoon, and we'll do some more. All right, have a good afternoon, guys.